This episode is sponsored by Karambit.com, the world's best source for high-quality fixed, folding, custom, and training Karambit knives.
With worldwide free shipping on orders over $100, 30-day returns, and 5% off your entire order when you use code SUB611 at checkout. As always, you'll be supporting the podcast, so thank you.
Are these still good for you?
Yeah, man. Let's go. These, of course, they're good.
I know.
They're good.
Okay. I'm sorry. Do you want to start with? So I guess we'll go into Karambit a little bit. Or what's the major stuff you want to talk about? Karambit, Vision Racing, and.
So the three main businesses I have would be my financial service business. So I'm a financial planner. That's the goose that's been laying the golden eggs. And then Karambit, and then of course Vision. Vision is my passion project. To be honest with you.
I guess we can kind of start with the F-14s flying overhead in Virginia Beach, and then how you. I guess you can tell me about that.
Oh, have we started?
Yeah, we can start now. I just get right into it.
Okay.
I don't have any introduction. This is William Simkins. I don't care. No one cares. We're going to talk about you.
Circa 1985, Virginia Beach, Virginia. As a kid, F-14s were a big deal. We from with the Navy. I'm not necessarily sure how many F-14s we built and were flying during the time, but during that era, I call it the Top Gun era, is in Virginia Beach, Virginia, they would practice daily, multiple times a day, above my house, above my home. I was probably 11, 12 years old at that time. And I had a swing set in my backyard. And by that time, I didn't necessarily do much swinging. But what I did want to do is get as close to those jets as I absolutely could. So I would climb to the highest point on my swing set, and then sometimes even hop off the swing set onto the roof of the house. So that way I could see all the different formations and practice. And I wanted to hear them break the sound barrier and make the neighborhood upset. And I determined at that age that I wanted to go fast. And I figured the best way to go fast was in a jet. So I wanted to, going into junior high school, which is what they call middle school nowadays, I wanted to fly jets, F-14s. And then a movie called Top Gun came out, and then that was my first rated R movie.
Oh, whoa. Wow.
That was watered down 1980s rated R. But my dad snuck me into that movie. Well, not sneaking, because it was, as long as you were with an adult, it was fine. But he snuck me because my mom didn't know. So he took me to go see Top Gun for the first time, and I was floored. And then that was what I wanted to do. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, is that in 7th grade, I was roughly 6'3" and a half in the 7th grade. I'm 6'7" now. So I was, unfortunately, by the counselor at the junior high school, was told that, yes, Will, you can fly an F-14, but got it? Yeah.
You have a very booming voice. So
really?
I don't want it to peak my levels, but no, I love it. Okay. I love it.
Yeah, my wife always tells me I'm too loud. She's like, she actually asked me to put my office, because we both work at home. And she told me to put my office all the way at the top, away, as far away from her as absolutely possible.
And just for everyone watching or listening, Will's ADHD. So this is going to be a very, very...
Oh, that's right. My bad. I changed subjects already.
But just like saying, if you're listening to this and you're like, where is this going? That's why. And Will's a wonderful guy. It's just...
And I'm off my meds too, so...
And I got caffeine.
Let's go, baby. I got some too here. Shout out to RBR.
Redbeard Racing. That's where we're shooting it at.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Sorry, we don't do sponsorship stuff here, so let's get into
those are my boys. So with that said, I did not end up flying jets, but have always been in love with them. You can, ask anybody in my family. about that. And even to this day, if you go into my office, there I have Top Gun all over my posters, all over the wall. You know, I have the need for speed. I have posters of that all over my wall, you know, and that all goes back, you know, over 40 years ago. So no jets. I'm a little peeved that they didn't at least give me the option to fly something else, you know, because there are other things than jets to fly. But no, you know, the stereotypes, you know, I was a tall black kid, and, you know, so give that man a ball, you know, so that's what they did. They gave me a ball, and I happened to be pretty good with it, you know, over time. But the original passion was to go fast.
So I want to incorporate vision racing, Crambit, everything that you do, but kind of like incorporate it throughout the entire podcast. But I wanted to kind of capture the one thing that you didn't mention, which is something we talked about during the brainstorming session, which is your passion to educate the youth.
Yeah.
You want to turn the boys of today into men instead of just like soft people that a lot of social media is like portraying, like, oh, you could be soft, you can be, you know, you could be a person that's not human, you just be another toy in the matrix. So there was one thing that you said on your wife's podcast back, I think it was in 2022, something like that. In the absence of communication, the mind defaults to the negative. So it's always better to over communicate than not to communicate.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
I think it's human nature. When an individual does not know, then human nature is many times we go to defense before offense. Example, if you turn all the lights off in this room, you can't see. So that's a lack of information. Thus, people are scared of the dark. But you turn the lights on and you see that there's nothing here. It could be rainbows and unicorns running around. And once you turn the lights on, then our environment has communicate that it's safe. Right?
So it's not even that they're afraid of the dark. They're afraid of what they don't know.
They're afraid of what they don't know.
So why over communicate? Because in my mind, obviously you will know as much as someone's willing to tell you.
Yeah.
Like if they don't want to tell you something, you won't know it. And therefore you can't make any judgment or assumptions or reasoning off of that. But there's also like over communication, because in my mind there's a difference between saying too much and then saying what's needed for the conversation.
Yeah.
So how do you look at it?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Okay.
There's some people that are not self-aware and they will over communicate to a point where they really just want to hear themselves talk, where what they're sharing is not necessarily useful in communicating or demonstrating what they're trying to communicate. But one has to understand when they're in those moments, in the moment where it's like, you know what? I think I made my point. Maybe I should just shut up right now and listen. We got 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? So that's something that I think is learned, you know, over time. And I can have diarrhea of the mouth for sure, you know, especially if it's something I'm like super passionate about, you know, but I do not like hearing the sound of my voice when I am in dialogue with somebody else, because the likelihood they can bring a lot more to the table than I can in my own awareness or self-awareness. So, some of the best interviewers, that's why you're great, is that you have the ability to ask open-ended questions and hear what somebody else has to say, you know, opposed to, you know, you have opinions, opposed to injecting your opinions first, you know, and then taking away from the effectiveness of what they have to offer. So, I think it's learned, you know, over time, but some people don't learn it.
Does that have to do with pride or ego?
Yeah, ego is big, and we all have it. I have it. Everybody has it. We're born with it, but you got to kill it. You know, ego, unless it's channeled in the right direction, because ego can help in a moment, in spurts. Ego is great, like in athletics, you know, in spurts, but you got to shut it down, because then also it can it can kill a team.
And would it be ego or would it be pride? That's because in my mind, ego is like the core identity. It's how you see the world, how you see, or at least how I see the world, how I see myself. Whereas pride is kind of something that can be given, that I can give too much of and I can have too little of. Where like I can be proud of what I'm doing, but I know with a sense of humility that this is not the best. Like there's 1,000 things I could be doing better with this, but there's only so much I can do before it's something that lowers the quality, right? I could do this. I could have better lights. I could have better cameras. I could do a lot more things that would make this 20 times better. And I would be like, dang, this is cool. But at the same time, where's that line between being too proud and not being proud enough?
They're cousins. Ego and pride are cousins, very close. But the Bible talks about pride preceding the fall, right? So, if one is self-aware and open, then I think that reduces the risk of pride having the ill effects. Ego, on the other hand, again, can be channeled in a really good direction. Ask Tiger Woods whether or not ego was he able to channel ego? Ask Serena Williams, was she able to channel? Ask Lewis Hamilton, is he able to channel his ego, for greatness? Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, shall I keep on? So pride, on the other hand, I don't know if you can necessarily look at a high performer or achiever and point to pride being an asset.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
as an asset. So it's a liability?
You can have pride in a thing or someone. Like, I'm proud of my kids, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have pride in yourself, that's a problem. That's a problem, But you could be proud of, I can be proud of the Commanders this year. We went to the NFC Championship. I'm proud of those guys, right? So you see how there's a difference opposed to external or giving pride opposed to internalizing pride.
Even though the two words are very similar, is there a distinction between pride and proud?
It's a root word.
Yeah. But in my mind, there's a negative connotation for pride and a positive one for proud. Like proud is almost like a sense of accomplishment, whereas pride is something that's...
I'd go with that.
Okay.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And it's in context, right? I mean, we're kind of playing that word game. But if one is self-aware, then we know which connotation we're dealing with in the moment.
How would you define self-awareness?
Being able to instantaneously see oneself in the mirror.
Can you expand on that?
You can't hide from the person that you look in the mirror. That's you, and we all have our own individual reflection, and we have to love it, or we can hate it. We can hold it accountable. We can encourage it. We can chastise it.
Just depends on what part you decide to water.
And where are you that day in the moment? And who knows how many times one that is self-aware that there is an issue. So here you go. If someone has too much pride, then they don't look at themselves in the mirror, because for them, they're perfect. I have no issues. What do I need to look in the mirror for? I'm good. What do I need to self-reflect on? That's what self-reflection is, looking in the mirror. Why do I need to do that? I'm good. So we'll see how far that person goes. Even the greats need coaching.
Yeah. Then how do you keep your pride in check while also having the ambition to keep pushing every day and not let the small little setbacks hold you down?
It has to be bigger than oneself. Whatever it is, it has to be bigger than oneself. It's not even about, at some point in life, it can't be about you. or me. It's got to be about what value can I either give to the marketplace if it's in business? What value can I give to my God? What value can I give to my family? What value can I give to my country? What value can I give to, I mean, I can keep going, so it has to be bigger than oneself. And what can we give to someone or something else? And that's where, safety is. Because if you're giving, then even if you miss the mark, you're okay.
From the perspective of I'm going to consider you a very successful man. Is that okay. I'm going to say
there's levels to it.
I'm going to say compared to me, you're a very successful man.
I also got you by 40 years? I mean,
that's not relevant. You're very,
all right.
What are your thoughts on the purpose of a man is to provide value? If you can provide value to other people, then you've created a purpose for you to live another day.
100%, which is kind of unfair in a way, but
unfair too.
Because, you said a man. So there's only two sexes. There's a man and a female.
I can't speak on the feminine side.
Well, you can. I mean, you can look at.
I don't know that many women. I'm sorry.
So here's society has already determined it. As born a man, in order to bring value as a man, you got to be able to create something. You have to be able to support something or someone. You have to be able to take care of oneself primarily. And this goes all the way back in time. If you couldn't bring value to the table, you weren't getting married. You weren't going to find a spouse. If you could not go hunt and bring something to eat home, meat home, because the ladies could do the farming. If you couldn't go track, kill, and bring it home for the community, you're useless. Why are you here? So for men, there is action that must take place in order for value to be created. It is what it is, man. It's always been that way. On the flip side, for the ladies, I'm just being real. And
you can say it from the perspective of your wife, why you found
my wife is gorgeous. Yeah, she's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the first thing I noticed. She has wonderful eyes. Like holy moly.
There you go. She's also very intelligent. But let's pretend she was not intelligent.
Well, no, let's pretend she is intelligent.
No, let's pretend she was not intelligent.
The first thing, no.
Let's pretend.
No, I don't want to.
Okay, let's pretend I didn't know who she. Let's.
Okay,
pretend.
fine.
Okay,
fine.
Here you go.
Okay.
When I saw her for the first time, I saw her smile and the beauty.
Right.
So, if she was, don't take this wrong, but if she was dumber than a box of rocks, I still would have taken her out. But a woman can bring beauty to the table that she's born with, or a feminine attitude that she's born with, and that is of high value. Or maybe she was taught by some women in her family. So she doesn't necessarily need to build anything in order to be taken seriously. She can be just beautiful.
It's the only way, like from this one conversation, not necessarily a reflection on society. If a woman's ability to be beautiful, which is inherent, it's what she's born with. She can't change it without like reconstructive surgery or plastic surgery, whatever. If that's one thing that would make her higher up the food chain when it comes to like society's food chain, then what about the women who aren't very pretty, who aren't beautiful or up to that standard, but still have the intelligence beyond anything else? Yeah.
So it's beholden. It's unfortunate, but it's beholden to them to build some of those other ancillary skills. Yeah, because men are very visual. So if we're looking at it in that way, if that is not going to attract the man, it's like bees to honey. If the honey ain't there, what's going to attract the bee? So it has to be her attitude, her femininity.
Would you say a good portion of your wife's personality comes from her confidence? and her
Oh,
beauty.
100%. But again, when I was across the room when I first met her, I had no idea. Had no idea. But I was still going. I was still going to walk across and introduce myself, 100%. You know, and then the rest would be what it's going to be. You know, but I was still going.
What's the number one thing that you've learned from your wife?
Patience.
Patience in just letting her, because women are very talkative, like to talk things out, to explain kind of. I think there was one analogy that women like to put all their cards on the table and make sure that there's no like perceived threat.
Speaking of women, my wife's calling me.
I mean, that was a very important call. So I wouldn't be like, nah. And also, hey, perfect timing.
It was perfect timing. Well,
it wasn't perfect timing. It was a higher being.
Exactly. Right. Well, she usually calls me around this time on Mondays, so I knew it was coming at some point. What was the question?
I'll go to another because I think that was a pretty good. Like, she called. Good. So you talked about the 5 tenets of decision making that you have. What are they?
It was a really dark place, you know, in my life. I was probably 6 months out of my divorce from my first wife. And my kids were not home anymore, either in the military, off to college, or living with my ex, you know, at the time. So a lot of times men will exist in solitude, especially in times of stress or distress. And this was one of those times. You know, I felt alone until, you know, you hear that soft whisper, and this goes back, I'm a Christian, so it goes back to many times in the Christian faith, Jesus will communicate with someone when they are at their lowest. Why is that? Is because many of the pride-based distractions are gone.
Yeah, when you hit your lowest point, you are capable of the most amount of change.
Exactly.
Or you're open to the most amount of change.
You're as clear to a clear slate as you can be. And that's where he wants to work. So that's where I heard the 5 tenets. And because I needed answers. So so what are the 5 tenets? And this saved my life, by the way. First one is pray. So communicate with God. Talk to him, you know, very candidly, just like we're talking here. Doesn't have to be rote prayers where you're walking around, you know. It can be very conversational. It can be positive. It can be negative. It can be somewhat judgmental. It could be whatever, just like you're talking to a friend. But if there's a decision that needs to be made, first thing is to pray, right? Now, after hopefully you get, you know, some type of answer to whatever you're asking for or needing consideration for, then after that, you got to focus. You got to focus on it. So what does that mean? That means having it in one's mind's eye is whatever the thing is.
What's just in case no one knows, what do you define the mind's eye as?
What you see in your brain.
Okay, self-awareness.
Different. Could be a goal. Could be, I want to buy a house in 10 years, or I want 30 million views on my podcasts in the next 12 months. You know, whatever that is, right? And then by focusing on it, you know, that allows you to see it.
Yeah. It also clears out any distractions that you have.
For sure. Absolutely. You know, so, because when you focused on a thing, then everything else, in theory, should get grayed out or blurry because you're focused on that one thing. Yeah. So you got to pray, got to focus, then you got to think.
Can't do that. I'm sorry.
Damn it. Got to think.
That's it. Oh, no more.
If you can remember when things were like analog, you literally would have to sit down with a pad and a pencil, write it out, do an outline, and really think about the words that you're putting to
Right. So focus is direction. Thinking is the amount of speed, not speed. Trying to make this to an easier way of understanding it. It's you focus on something, you find a direction. Your thinking is how do you want to get there?
Focus that's what I want. If God wants me to have it, then allow me to focus on it as a goal, right? And then I have to think about how to get there, which is a map, right? So you want to be able to have a map to get there.
Which gets to the fourth part.
Right. Pray, focus, think, plan. So you're thinking about it. Roughly, this is how I want to get there. The plan is actually, we're really close to putting it into action, right? But it's separate. It's different than thinking, because when you plan, you're actually engaging other individuals or resources.
Okay, so thinking is an individual endeavor. Planning is getting everything else put together.
You can even think with other people, though. Yeah, you can have an abundance of counsel. The Bible says that where there's abundance of counsel, there's wisdom. So you can have other trusted individuals help you think. Now you got AI, but back in the day, you would want to bring like a mentor or a couple of mentors into a situation to help identify your blind spots in whatever you're focusing on, right? So what I say, pray, focus, think, plan. Last one, execute. Got to get it done. Now, execution does not mean that it has to work the first time at 100%. Execution just means that one is committed to putting action into the other four tenets. Because as part of execution, you got to be flexible enough to change. But that's all. Instead of taking route 1, you're taking route 2. Route 2 may take a little bit longer. Maybe it's route 2 and then route 3, but route 3 is longer and bumpier. But you're still going the same place. You're executing.
So what about the fear of failure?
Oh, yeah. You fear. So that's fire. That's like gasoline. When I hear the word fear, is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Human nature is, again, goes back to the original, or one of the original examples I gave. If you turn the lights off, you don't know what's in the room. So thus it causes a fear response, right? But that's false, because once you turn the lights on, it could be unicorns and rainbows, right? So it's false evidence appearing real. Doesn't mean that it is real. And many times, most of the fear that we have is not a real thing. It's made up in our own minds.
Yeah. So if you're developing a high sense of self-awareness, but because of the intelligence and the intellect that you're gaining because of that awareness, creates this constant, a consistent repetition of fear, because you know that there's other things you haven't taken into consideration. And I guess that would be a fear of, not fear of complacency, a fear of not getting everything done.
Fear of failure.
I feel like there's a different word than failure. Fear of, basically like a word that you haven't checked every single possibility.
I think some people, I think that's more of an engineering mentality, where every instance, every possibility has to be checked, so that way whatever it is doesn't blow up. in the automotive world, as an example, or even in the financial planning world, we got to check our numbers, right? Because if not, it could be disaster. So if the PSIs on a car isn't on the tires on a car aren't right, it could be bad. You didn't put enough fluids in the engine, it could be bad. You give the incorrect advice on the financial side, you could blow up somebody's retirement. It could be bad.
And that has a lot to do with preparation. If you're not prepared for it, then it's gonna be exactly what you want it to be, which is not successful.
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just showing up can actually help you win. Just being there. Just be in the arena. So jiu-jitsu is a good example. You walk in as a white belt, know anything.
No.
Nothing. You're going to get your clock rung all day, every day, but are you a failure because you didn't prepare? I mean, heck no. You didn't know what to prepare for. You showed up, and you got to show up again and again and again.
That's the biggest step for anything, is initiated.
And keep coming back.
If you initiate into something, you take that first step into it, and then you consistently come back to the point where you're now learning things, and that new knowledge that you're gaining will help you in your preparation to become better in whatever it is.
100%. Because you don't know until you know, right? So then if you do it enough, then you develop muscle memory. And then once you have muscle memory, you don't even have to think about what you don't know, because you just naturally know how to do it. And that's with anything. If you do it enough. There's a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Love that book because it is indeed that. It's doing one thing over and over again 10,000 times. And if you do it 10,000 times, then at that point, you're an expert.
What about if you do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result?
If you do the wrong thing over and over again, you're going to get a negative result. But if I'm doing the right things over and over again, I should be seeing success. But it's not success all the time, because there are factors on the other end that you don't have any control over. And those are that's the ones that really challenge one as an individual or as a leader, is that what happens when you do everything the right way, at least you think you did everything the right way, and it still goes to crap.
How would you define success?
I think everyone's story is being written until they pass away. And I think success, at least for me, is what is the legacy I left behind? And is it making people, my family, my country, the marketplace better? But again, success is different for everybody, for everyone, but for me, can I make my kids and my wife proud?
Yeah. If you're on your deathbed and everything, would you say one of the things that you would consider a success is having the least number of regrets?
Oh, good one.
Obviously, you can't control how much you regret, because, of course, there's a lack of education when it comes to learning anything new, but rather not having the regrets of things that have held you back.
It depends on how you use the regret. You can use the regret as fire too. So there's regret. There's decisions I've made in the past that I wish I had not made before. And I can sit in regret, or I can use that regret and flip it to fuel. Meaning, I learned a really good lesson, or I wish I had made that decision differently. But if I ever see it again, if I ever am blessed enough to have that decision again, I'll know how to respond, right? But you got to stay in the arena for that to happen. So something negative happens, because regret usually has a negative connotation.
Well, regret and failure and fear are all probably like some of the best teachers that you can have.
100%.
Of course, not making them the main teacher, but rather a supplementary thing, because you can have a fear of drugs, fear of being too normal.
Yeah.
But I don't like being normal. I hate being normal.
I use a lot of sports references. You talk to Lewis Hamilton, he'll tell you there are hundreds of times where he's made mistakes and he regrets making those mistakes, but those regrets or mistakes made him into the driver he is today. Kobe Bryant, one of his first games or playoff games, he shot like 3-4 air balls in a row. And somebody can go back and look that up. Did he regret shooting those balls? Absolutely not. He used that fire to drive him to be one of the greatest ever. And he was a rookie at that time. Wayne Gretzky talks about all of the shots he's missed. But if he didn't take those shots, there'll be no Wayne Gretzky. So regrets are, it's kind of a twisted way to think about it. You want as many regrets as you can get.
If we took consistency out of the picture, what would be the difference between a rookie and a professional?
Reps, it's hours.
Or without consistency? Without
consistency.
Obviously, consistency is one of the biggest things. So if you took that out of the picture, what would be another thing or another major quality?
Well, I mean, assuming that the arena together.
Same amount of consistency, they practice on the same basketball court or baseball field or whatever. Everything is the same. The amount of opportunities they have is the same. What would differentiate a rookie, and not just a rookie as an inexperienced, but rather two people who have done 500 years of whatever sport they're in, and they had all the same opportunities, all the same doors open. What would be the difference between someone who becomes that top, not even the top 1%, but the top 0.01% versus that person who's still within the 90%?
An insatiable desire for greatness.
Ambition.
Greatness.
What's the difference?
Ambition is, I hope I can be good. Greatness is, I want to be the best. I want to be the best I can be. And if not even the best I can be, I want to be the best ever. I want to be on the Mount Rushmore of X. I want to be great. And if I don't reach it, then I did okay. On that very unique and special place where maybe there's only a couple of names mentioned alongside their own.
What about the kind of person, or what about the part of that drive to be the greatest, of not letting your ego or your pride overcome your blinding you from becoming also kind and also loving everyone else for themselves and not just seeing everyone as like, oh, you're not better, you're not as good as me, you don't put in the work as I do.
You almost can't care. You can't care about, and this is where the ego can help. It's like, I could care less about what anybody else thinks as I drive towards this goal. Either they're going to get on this bus with me or they're going to get off. But this is where I'm going. Period. I kind of had that attitude around life, which can be detrimental because that's like a bull in a china shop for sure. But then, that's where you got to have some self-awareness and bring it in. But your great ones that are out there are on the verge of psychotic. I can mention some names, some sports names, but you're on the verge of, I could care less if my teammates like me. If my coach likes me, if the fans like me, I do not care because this is the goal.
How do you balance that in your life?
You ask my wife, she'll tell you that I'm not at all. And no, not at all. Don't use absolutes. I do not use absolutes, but she'll say that's a challenge for me.
Do you find your quest for becoming the best person you could possibly be a problem when it comes to that sort of scenario, where the people that are with you the most, the people that love you the most and are there, are not fair weather friends. They're not the people who, they're there when you're at your best, they're there at your worst, but you're always focusing on what you want to do the best. Do you have, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, do you have that fear of not caring?
If I do have a fear, it's a fear of inadequacy, failure. My desire is for people to say, not really people, but those that are close to me, to say, he's doing the right things for the right reasons. And I understand.
And I want to get your advice on this, because I think I was trying to ask this question, but I didn't know it until you started responding. As of right now, I have 3 main fears that I'm kind of working on. Third one is my fear of complacency. Second one is fear of failure. And then my first one is fear of abandonment.
Abandoned by who?
From the few relationships that I have, the people that have helped me, but are not there every single day. And it kind of ties into, and I kind of mentioned this on another podcast, it might be a 21-year-old problem of just not having enough connections, of not being alive long enough to have like, oh, people are going to be here today, gone tomorrow. And then 10 years later, you'll see them again and you catch up as if nothing happened. But the fear of I'll be doing everything that I want to do, and then at the very end, I'll still be alone.
Gosh. I know this may sound really jacked up, but I don't know if I care. Because I learned a long time ago that I'm okay being by myself. Somebody, I can't remember who shared this with me, but this before I got married the first time. Maybe I was coming out of a breakup, and it was a guy I was working with. I think he was an older guy, older than me, and I was maybe walking around moping, and I was in my 20s. And his name was Charles. This is actually when I was managing Bally Total Fitness. I was a gym manager. This was in the probably 1996. His name was Charles. And Charles was like, hey, look, Will, you need to learn how to be comfortable by yourself. Whether or not you got a girl with you or not. Or you just need to be able to be comfortable by yourself, where you can just get in the car and drive and be fine. Or stay at home watching television or watching a game and be fine. Or going out to eat by yourself, or going to the movies by yourself and be okay with that, with your own thoughts. And the moment that you can do that, then you're ready for somebody else. And that was a few years. That was probably a year or so where I challenged myself in that way. Just being comfortable being alone. And in reality, being not alone, that's different. But just being by myself, and not, especially somebody like myself that's kind of a affection junkie, people pleaser, affection junkie. I'm both.
I don't mind being by myself. I just don't want to be so comfortable by myself that I start becoming solitary.
Oh yeah, that's not healthy. Being an isolationist is not healthy. Yeah, you're supposed to have a tribe. That is a real thing, especially for men, because we will default to being an isolationist. 100%. We do it all the time, and it doesn't, so it's not as if, sorry, but it's also natural for men at some point to gravitate towards a tribe. That tribe will find you. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. For example, Crips and Bloods. That's negative, but it's a tribe. Gangs are a tribe.
I didn't know what that was, but okay, it's a gang.
Yeah, those are Oh wow, am I showing my age or like that?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think about things that I don't want to do.
That's good because that's something not to do. But that's why men, because these are typically men raised in female single parent households that don't have a positive male role model. So they gravitate towards gangs, which are typically all men, or boys. And then they have a tribe, that's not good. But on a positive side, Vision Motorsports is a tribe, so we have men and women that all are coming together for the purpose of winning on the track, but also bettering other lives of the youth off the track. That's a tribe. Karambit is a tribe. Our Karambit community is a tribe. So it can go either way, but it'll seek you out. So you're not going to be able to run from it. It'll find you.
I don't want to do one absolute, but 3 would be a little bit too hard to organize in a conversation. What would be one critical thing that makes the difference between a boy and a man? Other than commitment, maybe discipline or accountability or purpose. Like what would be something that when you realized you weren't just a teenager anymore, or an adolescent or a young adult, that you were now a man, or you consider yourself a man?
Yeah. Being able to be comfortable being 100% accountable for one's actions.
Is accountability a subset of responsibility, or is it a separate topic?
It's close. You can't be an accountable person without being responsible.
How would you define an accountable person?
Someone that is comfortable saying my bad, my fault, that's on me, please forgive me. And that's tough, especially for men. That's tough. Well, let me back that up. Men do that very easily in a sporting environment, military environment. We'll pat each other on the butt and be like, hey man, my bad. And that's it. That's all we need to hear. Next play, next opportunity, hopefully nothing really bad happened. But typically we're not going to hold on to it. My bad. All right, let's go. We have, I think where we have the most difficult time doing it is with our children, because dad's supposed to be Superman. He doesn't make mistakes, and you don't want to look weak in front of your kids. And I think men are typically pretty quick to apologize even to their spouse, if she can be receptive to it and not berate him when he does say it's my bad.
One, the self-awareness, but also the emotional intelligence on both parties.
On both parties, yeah, because the receiving party has to be able to receive that, to receive the accountability and be not judgmental. Don't judge someone for saying they recognize that they did something wrong. That's messed up.
You wouldn't judge them, you would forgive them. You'd be like, I've done that before. Obviously, like no one's perfect, and mistakes happen. It's just a matter of, are you going to take your accountability of it? Yes, cool. That's all we need.
So that's for men, though. We're talking about men.
If we get your wife on the podcast, we'll talk about that from the woman's perspective.
Right.
I don't want to go into something that I don't know anything about.
Right.
I'm not a woman. At least I'm pretty sure I'm not a woman.
You are not a woman, sir. You got way too much facial hair for that.
I want to go on the emotional intelligence, or not the emotional intelligence, but rather there's one thing that we mentioned before, like way back, not to be controlled by how you feel. Is there, in your mind, a difference between feeling and emotions?
So we all have feelings, and being able to embrace one's feelings is healthy. Emotions is what we do with the feelings, how we express our feelings. And I think where it gets dangerous is where, this is in general, where it gets dangerous is if our feelings cause emotions and then we are controlled by our emotions. That's dangerous. But it's okay to feel them, feel the feelings and express the feeling. Just can't be controlled by it.
I've been on the other side where it's, you have emotions, fear, anger, anguish, happiness, an emotion, which then cause a feeling. It's how you, like the feeling is how you interpret it. And then based on how you interpreted it, that's going to create a response.
I look at it different. I would think that you have to feel it first before it manifests an emotion. So it has to activate the heart first. And then the emotion, shows up.
Yeah, because I know. Okay, no, that's fine.
In my brain. So for example, when I played basketball, I was a very emotional player. I would yell and scream and
yeah, I never understood that about sports.
Yeah.
When they're like, it's like, why are you fighting? Like,
I mean, very, very much, displaying a lot of emotion. But when you display emotion in that way, all you're really doing is expressing how you feel inside, outwardly for everybody to see. Well, guess what? When you express too much emotion, you're gonna get a tech. What are you doing? That's unnecessary. That's uncalled for, right? You can feel how you want. You can be hyped up and ready to go. You can feel that all day long. But the moment that manifests itself into an emotion, and then you can kind of make bad decisions, which means maybe you push a guy too hard and he falls down, or you pull his face mask, or you hang on the rim, or you do what, you yell in somebody's face, after you finish dunking, or you hit them, in football, or check them in hockey. You don't get a tech, right? So, and I was that guy. You can ask my teammates. I was that guy. So, for me, I'm in a very, I have a lot of feelings. I think I'm also an emotional person, but I've learned how not to, as best I can, be controlled by them.
would you call yourself more of an extrovert or more of an introvert?
I think I'm an introvert.
Okay. I mean, obviously this has to do with self-awareness, and we said this a bunch of times. If you were to control, let's say you were on that field, you're on the basketball court, and someone else is doing something else. They're being emotional. They're trying to elicit a reaction out of you. And this doesn't have to be in athletics. It could be on the street. It could be in the gym. It could be like someone else isn't as aware of their emotions, or they just pop. Like their day is going really bad and they just have to let it all out for something. How do you maintain the discipline of saying that this person isn't as emotionally intelligent as I am, and I'm not going to let the way that they're releasing those emotions affect the way I release mine?
I've been around enough where I've seen a lot of personality types. So I know when it's real and it's not real, or when it's dangerous or not dangerous.
That has to do just mostly intuition
and experience. Remember we were saying that, I think we were talking about regret, and I regret doing things incorrectly when hit with the stressor. So you kind of already know how this is going to work out in the end if you decide to do one thing or another.
So I guess a regulator would be fear of not making the same mistake again. Well, maybe not fear, but just not.
Understanding what the consequences are going to be.
Okay. So willpower. You have the willpower just to say.
I wouldn't call it willpower. Willpower would be, for me, is...
Well, your name is Will, so.
Actually, I have a T-shirt that says willpower on it. My sister bought it for me. It's one of my favorite T-shirts. I love it. Maybe I'll wear it to class one day. But willpower means that you just are comfortable not stopping. You're the unmovable force going to run through the wall, you know. And my sister bought that shirt for me years and years ago because she knows me, right? And she knew.
I sure hope so. She's your sister.
Yeah, she knew. But yeah, I would just think it's instantly going through the game tape of life in one's brain, saying, I remember this. I've been here before. This is no bueno. You know, I need to make another decision or a different decision to help that other person. And then by helping them, helping myself get out.
You try to be the example you want to see in the world.
Yeah, as best possible. Yeah. Yeah. Unless the only thing that would cause that to change or differ is if a family or friend were in danger. Peace is more important than pride.
Peace over pride. Would that be also like harmony over honesty?
Ooh.
The people who choose...
Do you really have harmony if you're not being honest? But I feel you on that. I see where that came from.
I would say that there is a level of harmony that's required.
Are my jeans fat? Do I look fat in these jeans? Aaron, do I... Well, your answer is, this is to your wife, by the way. What's your answer?
Divorce. No.
Right? What do you do?
There's, just because definitions, or at least the way I define harmony, is creating a interaction that's false. Is that it's kind of like in the corporate world where people don't take accountability, but kind of just don't give accountability. So they like some bad thing happens, they're like, yeah, something X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't anyone else's. It was just it happened. But even though it's like, well, I can take accountability for my actions. I take ownership for my actions. That would be harmony, where it's like, you just want everything to be perfect without actually addressing the problem itself. And then honesty, in my mind, is that you address the problem, you take responsibility, you take accountability, take ownership. You say, this was a problem. I could have done something about it. Even if it was like 1%, I could have done something about it. And therefore, I want to be honest about what it is without it being a future problem. Because one thing I hate more than anything else is, well, there are a couple more things I hate, but one of the things I hate is counterproductivity, is being counterproductive. Like, hey, I'm going to do all this work, and that one thing is going to keep me from doing more work. Therefore, all this means absolutely nothing if I don't fix that one counter the bad thing.
What you said, everything you said there is I think spot on. But there's one variable that we don't necessarily have control over, and that's how
other people react.
Boom. And that's the rub.
But that's also going back to what you say, is you attract your tribe. You won't fit with those people. If you have to deal with them, but you find your own tribe.
Which is also a challenge, because many times it takes years, decades to build and find that tribe, and then be comfortable just staying there, right? And because is your tribe growing? Or are they stagnant? Because those same, your high school tribe is not the same as your college tribe. It's not the same as your post, or your business tribe, so as you matriculate through life, your tribe could change, but eventually at some point, the prayer is to have a tribe where you guys can grow together.
I'm also thinking of the other aspect, which is the tribe that you have isn't going to be the tribe that you will have in like 2 days or 3 days. It's like there's no one group of people that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And that it's a constantly evolving tribe. As new people come in, others move out, because you yourself evolve over time.
It's rare where you can keep the same. I'm blessed to have, for example, a group of guys I went to high school with that we're still tight. I would consider them a tribe. With that said, we're in a different places in life doing different things. So there's not as much commonality as there was. The main commonality is we love each other. That's the main commonality. And no matter what all the other ancillary things are, we'll always be able to default to that.
So your tribe that you create is not a tribe of circumstances, but rather of love. Regardless of where you are in life, regardless of how bad it goes or how good it goes, they'll be there. They'll be there to have your back.
And here's the cool thing, because there's that commonality of love, and we're talking about probably 30, 40 years between tribes. I could bring my high school tribe in the same room as my 50-year-old will tribe, and they'll be fine together. They would blend, because the common denominator is the love and the realness, right? That's cool when it happens. For men, I think it's pretty easy.
We're pretty straightforward. Like, you either we're friends or we're not.
Real easy.
Clicks or it doesn't click.
I mean, I roll with that dude, or I ain't going nowhere with him. You know, it's really easy. But so for me, I've been blessed with that. Where, like, I had a 50th birthday party a couple years ago, and my high school guys came, plus all the people that I knew in today's world, and we all had a blast, just around the love for my crazy behind, and it was cool. Everybody they were talking about leaders of industry, you know, with guys from the block, like literally from the block, in the same room, you know, connecting with each other. So it's not impossible.
You give love to everyone else, not because you're expecting to get that back, but rather you're just doing it because you respect who you are.
I'm going to give it anyway. I try not to expect. Expectations are horrible. I don't expect anything from anybody.
But you do expect yourself to hold yourself to those higher standards that you keep yourself to.
Because that's the only thing I have control over is myself.
Yeah, so your judgment, your expectations are only on yourself, but not on anyone else.
The only thing that I really ask from others is respect.
How would you define respect?
Being polite, being true, being honest as best one can. The golden rule, do unto others as you do unto oneself. Being kind, being gentle. Respect, you know. Let's not be rude. Let's not be mean. Let's not be, because if you are, then I have an issue giving respect. And if I can't give respect, then it just gives room for other potential emotions that, like I said, I don't want to feel it, and I don't want to give emotion. I don't want to feel the feeling, and I don't want to manifest any emotions. But those that know me is that if you disrespect me or someone or something that I love, we're going to have a problem.